So as mentioned, this is the public hearing for the hemp emergency rule with the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, and we are recording this session. That recording is currently in progress.
Okay, Michelle, this is Brian. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and again would ask anybody that's on either via WebEx or Wistline to make sure your phones are muted so we minimize the background noise and feedback that we get during the course of the hearing. This hearing is now in session. My name is Brian Kuhn. I'm the Director of the Bureau of Plant Industry for the Division of Agricultural Resource Management at the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. I'll be conducting today's public hearing. This is a hearing on an emergency rule related to hemp and affecting small businesses. Specifically, this emergency rule repeals and replaces Wisconsin Administrative Code Chapter ATCP 22 that implements the Hemp Research Pilot Program. The repeal and replacement was necessary as the previous emergency rule was set to expire on July 1, 2020. This rule provides the necessary regulatory framework to continue to allow Wisconsin's hemp industry to plant, grow, and process hemp under the pilot program with minimal but necessary changes to align the rule with the 2019 Wisconsin Act 68, which is our state statute, and the Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018, the 2018 Farm Bill. We're holding this hearing via WebEx internet platform and also using a telephonic option to increase participant capacity today. I've initiated this hearing from Madison, Wisconsin. Today is Thursday, July 23rd, 2020, and the time is 1:02 p.m. This is the only scheduled hearing on this emergency rule. This rule was published in the Wisconsin State Journal on June 27th. Copies of the rule have been available online since Monday, June 29th on the state legislature's website and in the Administrative Register 774B published by the Legislative Reference Bureau, as well as on the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection website. Hearing will give you a chance to express your opinions on this rule. Your opinions will be considered as the department moves forward with writing the state plan and the next hemp emergency rule, which is required for the state to have lead regulatory authority under the U.S. Department of Agricultural interim final rule for domestic hemp production program. To summarize the timeline, the hemp pilot research program will sunset on October 31st, 2020. To maintain a state-operated hemp program, will have to promulgate a new emergency rule by November 1st of 2020 that aligns with the USDA interim final rule. The department is interested in what you have to say. You may provide facts, evidence, and arguments to support your opinions. The department will consider your views and those of other interested parties. You may give oral testimony today if you wish to do so. Based on the number of requests that we have, we reserve to limit testimony time if it becomes necessary to allow others present to provide their testimony. In addition, you may also submit written comments for the hearing record, regardless of whether you testify today. But you must submit your written comments no later than midnight, July 30th. The department is recording this hearing. We will include in the official record all testimony received today. Written comments should be directed to Abby Graff, Hemp Program, Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, 2811 Agriculture Drive, P.O. Box 8911.
To that lady.
Phone, please. P.O. Box 8911, Madison, Wisconsin, 53708-8911. Or you may email Abby Graff, that's abbey.graf@wisconsin.gov. Next steps, before we take oral testimony, I will present factual information to help you understand the content of this emergency rule. The department will consider today's testimony and all written comments we received between July 13th, when the hearing record opened, and midnight on July 30th, when the hearing record for this emergency rule will officially close. The department will consider all comments received through this hearing process as we develop additional rules to further align the Wisconsin Hemp program with 2019 Wisconsin Act 68, again, our state statute, and the USDA interim final rule. The emergency rule that we're discussing today took effect on June 27th, 2020, and remains in effect until the expiration of the pilot program or the date on which emergency rules implementing the USDA approved state plan take effect, whichever is sooner. Appearance cards. Normally, we have appearance cards that are available at a hearing like this, but because this is virtual hearing, we want to provide you with a little more detail on how we're operating the hearing and a brief tutorial on using the WebEx platform. As identified in our notice, if you plan to provide testimony today, we ask that you participate using the WebEx option. That is the interactive option that will allow you to provide oral testimony and may be accessed through your computer or telephone dial-in. If you are participating in the hearing only to hear testimony of others, you may use the Wistline option. That is the only option, and that phone is muted, and you cannot provide testimony there. We are using both platforms for participation today to provide the most capacity we can for public participation. Now I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Reinen, who will provide just a brief tutorial on the WebEx platform today. Michelle?
Thank you, Brian. So today we will be taking a testimony via WebEx as best we are able, whether you are on the phone or whether you are participating through the visual platform. Just a tutorial as it relates to WebEx. The lines will be through the bubbles at the bottom, whether you are muted or unmuted if you are using the computer. When you are muted or your camera is off, that will be red. As you can see in the top picture here, the microphone would be muted when it is red. However, if your bubble is gray, you are unmuted. If your video is gray and you've allowed your computer, WebEx, to access your computer video, your video will show when you are speaking. We ask that participants remain muted until they are called upon. We have asked that if you have not already provided a virtual appearance card, that you do so now. You will find the link in the chat box. To access the chat box, please hit the cartoon comment bubble that you can find in the WebEx platform. It is the fourth one over, the fourth bubble over on the bottom. That will bring up your chat box, as you can see in the right-hand panel of this top WebEx picture tutorial here. And there you will find a link. You'll be able to click on that, be taken to the form, and return to WebEx. If you'd like to see the other participants, you can hit the person bubble and you will get a participant list. Again, we will call on you when it is your turn to testify. At that point, please unmute your microphone in order to give your testimony. If you wish to show your video, please feel free to turn on your camera if you have not already done so. But remember, these proceedings are being recorded. If you have any questions related to the WebEx technology or the procedures of this hearing, please use the chat function. Again, that is the cartoon bubble that's at the bottom, fourth one over, and we will be monitoring that chat box. Otherwise, please use that link to fill out the virtual appearance card if you have not already done so. If you are on the phone, please be sure that you use the mute on your phone feature. If we see that noises continue to come through, I will be muting you through the WebEx feature. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So we will also be obtaining, because those people on by telephone can't use that WebEx feature in the chat box, we'll be periodically throughout the meeting today, we'll be asking folks that are on by phone to identify if they would like to provide testimony and capturing those names. So I will get back to that here in a few minutes, but Michelle just walked through that chat box option. So that is one way, and we have captured, if you've already done that appearance card prior to this meeting, and we've got about 23 people or so that had already completed that card. We have that, and we'll be calling names off of that list. For those who haven't done it, then you can use the chat box now to fill out that appearance card, and you'll be added to that list. Again, if you're on WebEx by the phone, would like to provide an oral testimony, we will take a few minutes to collect those names periodically throughout the hearing and get you in the queue to speak. I will call individuals by name to provide their testimony. Before you give your testimony, please state your name, and if you would like to, who you represent, whether you are for or against the rule or testifying for information. Based on the number of individuals we have wanting to provide testimony today, I will need to limit testimony to about 3 minutes to ensure everyone has the opportunity to testify that would like to today during our hearing. So I would ask you to keep that in mind and get your key points kind of maybe jotted down, because 3 minutes can go fast, but we'll be tracking that 3 minutes, and I will need to limit it to that today for the number of people we've got already in the queue to testify. As a reminder, you may submit written comments to Abby Graff at the department until midnight on July 30th. Also, we plan to post this audio recording of the hearing on the Wisconsin Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection website in a day or two after the hearing for those who can't participate in the hearing in its entirety today. If you wish to provide oral testimony today while I'm reading the rule summary, you may open the link in the chat box and complete the virtual appearance card. We will collect names of those on the WebEx by telephone that would like to provide testimony after I read the rule summary. So the next administrative piece of our hearing is for me to do that. So at this time, I will read a summary of the emergency rule that we're holding the hearing on today. This emergency rule continues to implement the Hemp pilot program. This rule repeals and replaces the previous emergency rule and was necessary as the previous emergency rule was set to expire on July 1 of 2020. This emergency rule remains in effect until the expiration of the pilot program, which is currently set for October 31st of 2020. Or the date on which the emergency rules implementing a USDA-approved state plan take effect, whichever is sooner. This rule provides the necessary regulatory framework to continue to allow Wisconsin's hemp industry to plant, grow, and process hemp under the pilot program with minimal but necessary changes to align the rule with the 2019 Wisconsin Act 68 and the Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018. All hemp pilot programs will expire on October 31st, 2020. States and tribes who want to have authority over a hemp program in their state or territory must have a plan approved by USDA by October 31st of 2020. General rule content. This rule maintains the existing pilot program, updates terms and provisions to be consistent with changes in state and federal law, provides more detail to reflect current program practices, and updates references regarding the expirations of licenses to address the end date of the department's authority to operate a pilot program. The updated provisions and new language in this rule do not make substantial changes to the implementation of the program for the 2020 growing season and the regulated industry will not experience significant change in program implementation from how the program has operated since inception. This emergency rule does the following. The definition of hemp is expanded to include all derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids, isomers, acids, salts, and salts of isomers. The definition of hemp clarifies tetrahydrocannabinol THC content is tested using post-decarboxylation or similarly reliable methods. THC is clearly defined to include tetrahydrocannabinolic acid, THCA, and testing methodology requires analysis of hemp samples to include THC regulatory tests. And again, that is consistent with how we've operated the program since inception. Clarifies conditions related to revoking or suspending a license, operating without a license, and enforcing. Clarifies required annual registration time period, permitted activities, recording and record keeping. Distinguishes a growing location, a lot, and a crop. Clarifies authority to inspect elements of growing locations, which is not changed by this rule. Clarifies that regulatory sampling must occur prior to harvest, but testing does not have to be completed before harvest. Failed lots must be destroyed within 10 days after the service of a destruction order, unless the grower requests a new sample before the end of that 10-day period. Fiscal impact. This emergency rule will have a continued fiscal impact on the department's operations. Department staff must review each application and all supporting information and perform a background check on each participant. This regulatory program requires a high degree of customer support and education. Department staff will also be responsible for inspections, sampling, laboratory analysis, and compliance. This rule does not change fees required by the previous rule, which has been in place since program inception in 2018. And there is a complete fiscal estimate available on the legislative website. Business impact. This emergency rule continues the existing pilot program with no added fees or costs, and therefore not negatively impacting a small business, as this rule does not make significant modifications to the regulation of the hemp industry. This rule continues the pilot program as it existed under the previous emergency rule, with minor changes to ensure consistency with state and federal law. Again, a complete business impact analysis is available on the legislative website. And then just to identify next steps. Following today's public hearing, the department will consider all comments received today and throughout the public comment period, which began on July 13th and ends on midnight on July 30th. The department is currently drafting emergency rules pursuant to 2019 Wisconsin Act 68, Section 38, and a state plan that must be approved by USDA to provide the department authority over the hemp program in Wisconsin. Both the emergency rule and state plan must be in place by October 31st of 2020. All public comments will be taken into consideration in development of both the next emergency rule and the state plan. So with that, I think we are preparing to begin taking public testimony on the rule. Again, for those who have joined us since we've been in progress and didn't hear some of that front-end instructions, and you would like to provide testimony, if you're on via WebEx, you can use the chat box feature there to fill out an appearance card. And at this moment, I wanted to pause and try and capture the names of anybody who's on WebEx by telephone. So can't use that appearance card option. If you've already filled out an appearance card, we've got that captured and we'll be calling your name. But if you're on by phone on WebEx, I guess at this point, I'd like to get names of people that are there that would like to testify today. So is there anybody on by phone that would like to testify today that hasn't already said so? Hearing none, and before we jump into taking testimony, I would also ask if there's anybody on via WebEx then that's on through the internet or through their computer that has not filled out an appearance card but would like to provide testimony. Okay. Well, hearing none, no additions. I know we've received information from about 24 people that have identified they would like to provide testimony. So, Abby, I will go ahead and start with the first two names, and then you can jump in after that. And we will take a pause here in a little bit to capture anybody that's joined the meeting in progress and would like to provide testimony. So the first name I have up is Zachary Baker, and we've got Dave Glass would be the next speaker after Zachary. So we've got up on the screen right now in WebEx just some basic information we'd like you to provide, and ideally just at a minimum your name, who you're representing, and our interest would be in whether you're in favor or in opposition, but that information is optional. So Zachary Baker, you're up to provide testimony. And is Zachary Baker on the WebEx meeting? Okay, we will move forward then. Dave Glass from Oak Creek. All right, I'm just looking down our list to see if any of these folks are in the participant list. Okay, we'll move on to the next name I've got is Eric Robbers from Marillion. Eric? Continuing on, we've got Taylor North from Glenwood City. Taylor, are you on the line? Okay, moving forward again, Justin Taps. Is Justin on the line? Justin Taps from Spring Green. Samuel Ward. Samuel on the call.
Hey, yeah, I am on the call, but I have nothing to add. I just filled out the card, so I just have nothing to add.
Say again, Samuel, you have nothing to add from what's on your card?
Yeah, correct. I just made a card because just so people knew who I was, I guess. I don't know. It was just an option that I just filled out, so I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dennis Nelson from Green Bay. Is Dennis on the line? Next on the list, we've got Azmet Khan from Milwaukee. Azmet Khan. And I would remind folks, if you're on the WIS line and would like to provide testimony, we need you to hop over to the WebEx meeting opportunity, because that's where we have an interactive opportunity, and you can provide testimony over there. And so that would need to be accessed through the WebEx website with meeting access number 126-395-1554. Again, meeting number 126-395-1554 with a meeting password of capital ARMH, lowercase EARING. ARM hearing is the password. So again, if you want to provide testimony, WebEx is the platform we want you on to provide that interactive testimony. So with that, I'll come back again to, we've got Douglas Morgan from Springbrook. Jacob from Menominee. Is Jacob on the line? Okay, next up we've got Austin Wozliak from La Crosse. Austin. Okay, next is Tricia from Sheboygan. Is Tricia on the line? And I assume maybe what we're seeing here reflected in this is that people filling out the appearance card just may have done that thinking they were giving us their input for, against, or information. But we'll see. We'll be on the line for a bit here, so we'll see if they join the call here later, or the WebEx meeting. Next up, we've got Carl Beulah from Antigo. Carl, are you on the line? Next is Samuel Santa Ana. Samuel from Milwaukee. How about David Prashik from Somerset? David. Kevin Bonet from Waukesha. Kevin Bonet. Adam Watson from Horicon. Adam? How about Brian Wickert from Viroqua? Brian Wickert. Jen Schmitz from Cashton. Jen?
Hello, thank you so much for this opportunity. Jen Schmitz from Cashton, Wisconsin, obviously. I am a farm, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I am a member of Wisconsin Farmers Union and in contact with a few other local growers and processors here in the area. I don't know that I'm truly representing any of those, but I do want to be transparent about that. I was a processor first last year in 2019, helping some of these growers harvest and anticipating that the supply chain issues were going to be the biggest hurdle. As many of you know, that is absolutely true, especially in southwestern Wisconsin. Markets are not super easy, as Green Bay and Milwaukee are kind of far right now. And obviously the COVID pandemic has altered a lot of stuff on the ground for a variety of reasons. I guess I was mostly joining in the call for information. I think more or less I'm in favor of the ruling. I guess I would just like to add that as a small starting grower, the fees are large enough. I hope that we don't have to pay a lot more in fees from that perspective, but I also recognize that there is a balance with the larger growers and that revenue is really important to the state program. So striking the balance is, I think, where I'm just hoping we continue to stay. And also I recognize the amount of information we're asked to provide. It's challenging, and I feel like I've stumbled and made a few mistakes. I'm grateful for what the DATCAP staff is able to help us with. And I just hope that that continues to be reasonable as well, striking the balance. Again, thank you for this opportunity. And I just think it's important as we want success with this, that we all are voicing our thoughts when we can. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate your testimony. Next, we've got Peggy Giles from Delafield. Is Peggy on the line? Next, I've got Precious Badran from Milwaukee. Precious. Timothy Nicholson from Viola. Timothy on the line? Philip Scott from Madison. Philip, are you on the line? And Karen Hartley from Oshkosh. Karen Hartley, Oshkosh, are you on the line? Okay, that is actually the list of about 23 names that I have. I'm going to check back over with Abby Graff to see if, Abby, if you have additional names at this time.
Yeah, I do. So up next we have Robert Lawrence from West Bend.
Okay, Robert from West Bend, are you on?
Okay, and then if Robert's not on, up next we have Larry Kopacki from Fitchburg.
Okay, yeah, Larry Kopacki from Fitchburg. Go ahead, Larry. And remind folks to make sure to unmute if you're coming in to provide testimony today. And we'll circle back and just do a final check if there's...
I suppose we can't say that anymore, unfortunately. What are we going to replace that one with? How much are you doing with WICMIC these days?
Who's on the, is that Larry?
Glad to hear that.
Who's
All right,
on the line right now? Yeah, somebody on the line who's in another conversation, but on our line as well. Okay, one last shot, Larry Kopacki. Okay, Abby.
Can you hear me?
Oh, is that Larry?
Can you hear me?
Yes, is that Larry?
Yes, this is Larry. I thank you for holding the meeting today. I wasn't intending to speak, but I appreciate the effort of everyone at the department and the openness of the process and the support you've provided the industry. That's all I have for today.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
Okay, then up next we have Ken Kreisky from La Crosse, and on deck we have Jennifer Schmitz from Cashton. So
Okay.
from La Crosse, if you're on.
I am on. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yes.
Perfect. Ken Kresge, representing Crush Fields up in Poplar, Wisconsin. Appreciate the efforts again, reiterating what the last individual mentioned. We appreciate all the help and support we've gotten as a new grower and individual in the industry. Looking at all of the rules and regulations is a little daunting in the beginning. Understanding, and my question would be understanding that this is really just the extension of this emergency rule to cover until we get to the October 31st, by which there'll be a new set of guidelines to run our businesses by. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Is there any anticipation of the extension by which these rules will change coming in October 31st? Do we have anything in the pipeline right now that says we're going to have some drastic changes, or are we just going to kind of mold what the federal government has had and what we've used for a pilot program and with some fine tuning?
Real quick, I'd say today's opportunity isn't necessarily set up for a Q&A, but Larry, I think others are going to be interested in this same topic, and why are we moving to that rule at the end of October and having to be into a new program by November 1. So just for clarity to everybody, that rule change in this next emergency rule is required if the state is going to maintain a state-led hemp program where the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture Consumer Protection operates that program in Wisconsin. If we don't put a new rule on the books that lines up with the federal interim final rule for domestic hemp production, which is, and every other state is in this same boat. If we don't do that, then all of our hemp growers in Wisconsin will be working with the federal government in their operation of a hemp program in Wisconsin. And DADCAP wouldn't be playing this role that we've played for the last 3 years with growers. So there is some significant change to that program, and to really understand that, the two things you'd look at are 2019 Wisconsin Act 68, which is our state statute, and the interim final rule, USDA's interim final rule for domestic hemp production. Those are the two things, and they kind of go hand in hand because the state legislature mirrored our state legislation after the 2018 Farm Bill language. So some of that language looks very similar to what was in the federal Farm Bill to make sure that our program would line up well with the federal program. So I'll stop there, but that's the background on it. As it stands right now, the pilot research program that we have been running, and this is nationwide, that program will come to an end on October 31st. And come November 1, all states will either be operating under the new USDA interim final rule parameters and an approved state plan, or, and some states have chosen to do this, they hand it over to the federal government, and USDA AMS is running that program for those growers in a given state. So I'll stop there, but Ken, that's just to give you a little more background, and everybody else as well, that same understanding. If you're wanting to know what those two, again, what the program looks like after November 1 or at November 1, definitely, again, 2019 Wisconsin Act 68 and the USDA interim final for domestic hemp production are your two kind of guideposts of what that's going to require.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you accommodating my question. I apologize for getting out of line on that. But the other comment I guess I would have, obviously in favor of continuing until the 31st. The other comment I would have is just that my thought around the amount of flowers that have to be gathered when testing, and that might be too specific to this, but going forward, I would assume some of the smaller planters don't have the kind of, there's the amount of flower that would actually be a little tough on them. We're growing more than that. It's not going to affect us as much, but if you are growing a smokable flower, those are some of your prime flowers. That would be a small comment to make. And outside of that, I appreciate all your efforts. Look forward to going through the two forms to figure out what the program will be like in the future.
Okay, yeah, thank you for your testimony, Ken. Abby, others?
Yeah, so up next we have Jennifer Smith from Caston.
I actually got in there twice and already spoke.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, so we've gotten Jennifer already. Anybody else, Abby?
Sorry. No.
Okay, so we have nobody else in the queue right now?
Yep, no, I just double checked.
Okay, and so I will put it out there to the group on the WebEx meeting right now, whether you're on by phone or through WebEx. Do we have anybody on currently that would like to provide testimony that has not provided testimony yet today?
Can you hear me?
Yes, so who are we speaking with?
This is Mike Petuello from Montello.
Okay, Mike, and if you would like to provide testimony on the hemp rule today, go ahead and give us your testimony.
Just as a follow-up to the last conversation, as far as transitioning to new rules October 31st or November 1st, we're still going to be in the midst of this growing season. and the harvest may be in, but we'll be processing products and that. Is it, are we, I guess, these are going to be questions versus testimony, I guess, but I mean, are we forced to buy another license mid-year or mid-growing season? And will the rules potentially impact the crop we're growing?
Yes, so I will provide some quick feedback to you there, is that certainly our encouragement would be for the crop to be harvested in advance of that transition date. So that October 31st date, anybody growing this season, our encouragement is you want to be operating, and really this rule focuses on the growing side of things. So that USDA rule is focused there and doesn't really speak to the processing side. So our recommendation is certainly if you're growing this season in the field, you're going to be best off harvesting your crop prior to the end of that program, so you don't do what you were just describing and span potentially two different rules. You're growing under the pilot research program currently. As long as you are sampled and we get that sample collected under the pilot research program, that's your regulatory picture and regulatory perspective falls under the pilot program. If that occurs November 1st or later, you will fall under that new program. And there will be different requirements there. The analytical kind of measuring stick is slightly different than what we do right now. And again, that's in that interim final rule information if you'd like to understand that detail of what that is. But again, that is the case, Mike, would be that you would fall in the new program if you have not had your regulatory sample collected in advance of that November 1 date. If you've harvested the crop, then you're moving down the road with a harvested crop. You've got a fit for commerce. If you're a processor, again, I think things move on there. But it's really when you've got a crop in the field is the real concern for growers, and that date is important to them, and they should be focused on that harvest, ideally harvest by October 31st.
Thank you. I certainly anticipate harvested and tested by that date, of course. I certainly was last year, but still you will end up with a product from the harvested product, and there's rules around that, and I think you still have to have a license to handle that processed product, right? I'm just wondering if we're going to be forced to purchase another license in the 2020 growing year, post-harvest and stuff. It seems a little fuzzy to me.
A piece of this, we'll take that comment to heart, but that is one of the pieces of the rule that we will be working on, is that transition license period. Certainly our intention would be to license people for the next growing season, but we will have to do something if you've got crop in the field. On the processing side, again, the department is looking at that side of it and the licensing implications around that. Again, the federal rule doesn't speak to that. They really focus on the growing and harvesting of the crop in the field. But to your point, yes, those are definitely points that we are working on in that emergency rule and that next iteration, and understand your point there of desiring not to incur another licensing fee mid-season when you've paid for a licensing fee.
Okay, thank you very much for taking that into consideration. And I want to echo other people's comments. You guys have been very, very helpful through the whole process. So kudos to all of you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate your testimony. Abby or Michelle, do we have any other folks in the queue?
No, not yet.
This is Michelle. There was nothing in the chat, so the only other concept is if you want to open the WIS line.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. That's I think that's a good idea to make sure there's nobody over there that couldn't get converted over. So let me do that. I'm going to put myself on mute here and unmute the WIS line real quick.
The reclassification of the THC. There's kind of a two-part deal. One is, if you're currently growing, I mean, this season, most of the growers that I know, their plants are 5 feet tall, and with the genetics that they have, I mean, I'm very worried for their behalf that that most of their fields are gonna be hot now. With the total THC calculation now being in play. So that's one comment. The second comment would be with that reclassification, what happens with past or like 2019 biomass? I'm a processor. I still am sitting on, flour and biomass that, is Delta 9 compliant, but is not the total THC compliant. Do I just have to destroy that, or can I process it? I'm just very leery on this, this rule switch right in the middle of a growing season.
Yeah, so I guess just to make the clarity on that, Timothy, we didn't change the way we've done our chemistry or our analytical or that total THC. We've been doing that from the inception of the program. So if you've got a fit for commerce for your 2019 crop, again, that came with the same analytical that we'll use this year for all of our growers. That's the base THC analysis we've done since the inception of the program, and our fit.
Didn't it read last year as 0.3 Delta 9 THC with a total of 1%?
No, it's the 1%. Allows you to, if you're under 1%, you can ask for a retest or a resample of your crop, and it provides some protection against law enforcement for having a hot crop, as long as you're under that 1%, 1% THC. But the 0.3, again, has been the standard we've operated with. Now, the way we've interpreted that, again, will change when we go into next year. So post October, as we come into November 1, and this is one for folks to read and focus on, the USDA program and our statutes are going to make us, we're going to have to hold more strictly to that straight 0.3 THC. We've basically been allowing up to this 0.39% THC. It's going to hold us to a 0.30 with an MU, so a measurement of uncertainty from the laboratory. So any labs doing laboratory work under the new program, under USDA, have to calculate a measurement of uncertainty that they apply to that result, and then base that impacts your number. So it does still provide a little bit of difference, but it is one that's important for people to be looking at and making sure they understand how that THC number is calculated going forward into the next growing season. But this growing season, again, we're still holding to that 0.3 THC number that we've always had, using the exact same analytical. And even when we move into the new program, analytical will be identical. We won't be changing it, but but we won't be rounding the way we have, and we'll have to change that, take that MU, that measurement of uncertainty, into consideration.
I understand that, sir, but if I can pull my old documentation and everything else, but the way I read it, it was 0.3 delta 9. Now, if you're including THCA into that calculation for the total THC with the 0.877, times plus the delta 9, I don't remember that calculation ever being, out there. So that's where it's yes, you're still using the same calculation, but you're calculating it differently, utilizing the THCA.
And again, just to be clear, from our program operation standpoint, we've always done that this is the third year we haven't changed it since the beginning of the program. So we've all included that THCA as part of our THC analytical work.
Okay. If I, find my documentation, is there an email address that I can ask a question to regarding that later on?
Yeah, if you want to provide additional testimony, you can on this THCA issue. Please send that in to us. Again, that's part of what we want to hear about. That's something that, again, is just the state legislation and our rule clarified that a little bit more clearly than it was before, but it's the same, the same parameters, same analytical, nothing's changed on that side. So yeah, you can send that into to the email that we provided with this to abbygraph@wisconsin.gov.
Okay. I mean, using that calculation, I would probably say only, 80% of all the hemp out there in the marketplace is that total THC compliant. Because a lot of these companies are going off of the federal one with the 0.3 delta 9 calculation.
Yeah, and the reason, I would say the reason we're changing or put that clarifying language in there is that, USDA finally put that into theirs as well, just defining that it must be decarboxylated, and that is what pulls in that THCA component. So, all right. Thank you, Timothy.
Thank you.
Any other people on the WIS line that would like to provide testimony today? Okay, hearing none on the WIS line, I will swing back to the WebEx platform again, asking anybody else that's on the call currently or on the WebEx that would like to provide additional testimony to the department today during the hearing. Okay, well, we're coming up on just 1 hour into our hearing right now. I guess hearing no more testimony, what we may do is just give it a few more minutes here before I actually just close out the hearing to see if anybody else jumps on at the last minute, just going into the 2 o'clock hour a little bit, in case people were getting off of something else and were thinking they were going to be able to jump on to this hearing. Want to make sure we don't miss anybody. But if, again, keep in mind that anybody can provide written comments at any point in time. Those can come into us up until the end of the day on July 30th. So a week from today will be the closing of the public hearing record for this rule. So any comments that come in via email or regular mail will be entered into the record and will be used and carry the same weight as any testimony provided today in our hearing. So just that reminder to folks, again, if you know of anybody that didn't get to testify, or if you have any more to share with the department, after you look at the rules and think about this.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Eric Robers. Are you guys taking questions?
At this point, Eric, we're still trying to take testimony for comments on the rule. Do you have any specific testimony to provide for, against, or information about the current rule?
I would just, and I don't know if they covered this earlier, but if we haven't already applied for a hemp license, does the rule that's being proposed that still contain that language in there, so people who haven't applied for a hemp growing permit are still able to?
Yeah, there's nothing in the rule that will that precludes people getting licensed to grow hemp going forward. This rule again carries the same licensing framework forward, and there may be some changes to that in the new rule beginning in November, but those are changes we're still considering and thinking about for licenses and licensing process. But again, our intention is for the department to submit a state plan and to write a new rule to continue to operate a hemp program in the state of Wisconsin and have Wisconsin Department of Agriculture be that entity that is operating the program for growers in Wisconsin.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Andrew Peitzel. I'm an attorney from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I was hoping I could make a request for some information if possible. Can you hear me?
Andrew, what's your last name?
Martzel. Would you like me to spell it?
Yes, that'd be great.
Sure. It's MARTZAHL.
Okay. And what?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No. What? Did you have a question, or do you have? Right.
I did. I had a question just about what is really covered in the emergency rule, and I guess if it's not covered, if that CAP would be considering issuing some guidance in the future. Just about, we've had some clients inquire into Delta 8 THC. As far as I understand, it's an analog of Delta 9, and they're concerned about the testing procedure for their hemp products and whether Delta 8 THC would show up as the Delta 9 THC, and really the legality of the Delta 8 or marketing products that contain Delta 8 THC.
Yeah, Andrew, that is one that I know I've seen at least a question related to that Delta 8 concept come to us, and it's not one that we've really got a good ability to respond to, in that it's not a parameter that we specifically test for, and it's not a regulatory parameter being held, currently that growers are held against in our regulatory scheme. So Delta 9 is really the focal point. Again, I would have to work with others at the lab to get more detail on any kind of interplay between Delta 8 and Delta 9. But at this point, I don't know that it has relevance to our regulatory scheme. It might have relevance to other, I don't know if there are other safety or other concerns around that in the marketplace kind of thing. But we can follow up with an email with you, Andrew, offline on this, if we can get any more information for you on that. But again, it's not one that we as an agency work with. We don't test for it very specifically and look for that. Delta 9 is our focus, and that's the regulatory focus for the hemp program nationally.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I can send an email to Debbie Graff, just with my email following up if that would be.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I will. I'm going to just read a kind of a closing comment here for those that are still on the line, and we'll wrap up here at about 2:10. Again, I'm closing the hearing at this time, but before I do so, again, want to remind you that you can submit comments in writing, including those folks who provided testimony today. And again, these comments either via email or regular mail to the department through Thursday, July 30th, will be taken and held at the same weight as the comments that were received here during the hearing today. So with that, I'm going to go one more time out to both the WISH line and the WebEx to make sure we've covered the bases.
The participants are unmuted.
And ask a final time if there is anybody on either line or platform that would like to provide testimony today.
Hi, this is Diane.
Yeah, could you state your name again?
Iola Stalling.
Okay, Iola.
Hi. I just kind of wanted to say you guys have really been very helpful with this product. With trying to open up the hemp line in Wisconsin. But I'd like to kind of make a comment if it's a possibility, because I've been to a couple of the functions that they've had this year and last year. But there seems I'm focusing on. I like to find out more about how can I get my product line into like a biodiesel fuel development or any kind of developmental programs that you might have, like hempcrete without the line, that kind of stuff. Those are the types of things I'd like to see maybe tap into, for lack of a better way to phrase it, as we continue forward. But thank you for your help so far.
Okay, thank you, Iola. Yeah, I appreciate your feedback and testimony today. Okay. If there's nobody else on the line that would like to provide testimony today, then I want to thank you for your participation in today's public hearing on the hemp emergency rule, and have a pleasant day. Thank you for your time today. At 2:08 p.m., we are concluding the hemp emergency rule hearing. Thanks once again.